talk to young coaches now, and it's like they wanna skip the line to get to like, oh, I want to do what you do. It's like, well, I started with never saying no.
Yeah.
Like I never said no to anything, and I remember as I was like doing that, just like clipping along. David Branch, who's the former commissioner of the CHL, we were very close for a time, and he came to me at one point and he's like, Fitzy, like you can start saying no now. I'm like, what? And he's like, you can start saying no, like start to delegate some stuff and start to say no to, like he was that guy for me for a while. Just advice and like some mentorship, and like it was awesome because I'm like, yeah, I didn't think like that, right? It was more about, I'm never going to say no.
Yeah.
Like I'm never going to say no. And then you realize the power of saying no, and the power of saying, passing on stuff as opposed to like doing everything. But there is a time where you should do everything.
Yeah.
Like you should, hey, you want to train this 12-year-old? Yep.
See at 8.
Right? Like you just, I don't know. That's just, maybe it's a personal thing, but I think there's always value in that as a young up and coming coach.
That's a coach thing specifically that I think a lot of coaches have to learn. And afterwards, they're like, that's how you weed through the good coaches and the ones who stick around. Like I would hear Corey Gilday, Jordan Shallow, those guys reference those same things. It's like, man, you got to put in your time. You got to do 5-10 years where people don't even know who you are, what you're doing. And then eventually you start to build a name for yourself, a brand.
For sure.
Right. And you got to spend 5 years within the OHL, 5 years within the CHL to then make it to the NHL, right?
Yep.
And then you're still in an assistant role, and you're still supporting others. You're still saying yes to everything else. I'm very guilty of not saying no to anything. You've seen me. I'm like, yo, where do I got to go? What do I got to do? But what you don't say no to, you're ultimately saying no to other things that could be more valuable.
And that's the big picture thing, right? Like is not realizing that if by saying no to this thing, it opens up the door to this other thing that you didn't even know was there. And that's hard because like, I wouldn't say it's like looking around corners, but you have to know that more things are going to come.
Yeah.
Like you have to believe that. And they do. They always do. I feel like I'm super fortunate because I believe that I work hard and I'm good at what I do. And when I do something and be a part of something, I'm all into it. And that just, it opens doors for other things, whether you know it or not. Like it just, I don't know. I feel like it always has for me. I said to someone earlier today, it's like, I know I can always make money doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's not an arrogant thing. It's just more like, I don't know. I just feel like I do a good job, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's going to come, I'm going to get opportunities to do what I do, right? Whether that's not smart or not, I don't know, but I do it. So,
well, when you're doing the good job, when you do good work, you don't even have to speak for yourself. That work does for you.
True, yeah.
And those other people recognize and they're like, hey, I need this guy a part of it, right? That's why you spend 2 decades with an Under Armour.
Yep.
That's why you're able to have you've got teams all around every Big 4, Big 5, like now with the Las Vegas Desert Dogs.
Yep.
That's why we're here today in Vancouver, fresh off the Canucks trading Quinn Hughes. You're a hockey guy. I feel like we got to get your take on that one before we go anywhere else. Mark Fitzgerald, what do you think?
You know what? The Jim Hughes, the dad, I worked with him when I was with the Maple Leafs years and years ago. And I remember coming into the rink when the team was on the road and 3 little boys out on the ice with their mom, and just at 6 a.m. on our practice ice, just getting absolutely ragdolled on the ice, or bagged, sorry, at 6 a.m. And I'm just like, what is going on here? And sure enough, Jimmy Hughes would come around the corner and like, oh, that's just my boys. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, wow. They're pretty little for 6 a.m. on a Tuesday in February.
Clearly it paid off.
Yeah. I mean, so I've known those kids since they were very little, which is cool. I think it's, it's cool to see them all being successful. Jimmy's a great guy. He was our player development for the Leafs, so I spent a lot of time with him. But yeah, what do I think? I think that's part of the game. I think it's, to me, when you give a guy like Quinn, who's obviously a generational talent and all that stuff, when you slap a C on the chest of a kid like that, I don't think it's fair. I think he's not a captain yet. And again, there's no knock against him. I think he's incredible. But how, like, to be a captain of an NHL team, to have that pressure, you have to have years.
Yeah.
You have to know what that means. You have to know how to push the media away. You have to, like, it's such a tough job. And, like, again, maybe that wasn't the issue. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I don't think that helps a guy like him. Put an A on his chest, sure, whatever. But or don't, and just let him be who he is. Like, it baffles me. Like, I think, again, part of the game, and it's unfortunate to see Vancouver lose a talent like that. But again, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, I feel like the same thing happened with Austin Matthews in Toronto.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you stripped a guy like John Tavares from the C, who's already spent a decade in the league, knows how to be a captain, one of the best leaders, and then you throw Matthews in there, who's my age, and who's still trying to figure out. He hasn't scored 50 since he got that C. He's, there's a lot of pressure that comes with wearing that C in a Canadian market.
And you can't even say Canadian market; it's the market.
Yeah,
it's the Yankees of hockey. It's right. So I remember when I was there years and years ago, same thing happened. We traded for Dion Phaneuf, and Dion is awesome, and he's whatever. And 25 years old. Here's the keys to the city.
Yeah,
and, like, we traded away the real captain at the time was Francois Beauchemin. And Bosch was, like, the leader. He was the guy. He was a vet. He was a Stanley Cup champion. He was the guy everybody looked at in the room. And now all that pressure, all that responsibility goes to 25-year-old Dion. And it's like, what do you expect? Like, he's not, like, and Dion's a great guy, and he was a good leader and whatever, but it's just that pressure is immense. And especially in Toronto, it's multiplied. So how do you expect that? It's not just a letter on your chest. It means something, especially in hockey. Like, it's probably more than a lot of other sports. It means something. Like, it's more integral than people realize, especially when it comes to, like managing the room and managing the team. And, like, it's really tough. And I feel for even a guy like Matthews, as talented as he is, like, it's weight, right?
You got 24 other guys looking up to you, looking for direction when shit hits the fan. And if you don't have an answer or something to say in that moment, then they start questioning, right? And that's not fair. Again, fair position to put someone in. But you can speak to that probably better than anyone, right? Having worked in the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, that market. And then I don't want to say you go to the other end of the spectrum, but the Anaheim Ducks, where there's maybe not quite as much microscopes dissecting everything that you're doing. Strength and conditioning obviously stays the same for the most part, but having a different market like that, did it allow you as a coach to work better with players because there wasn't that scrutiny from a day-to-day?
Yes and no. I think Toronto was Toronto. Like, it was, you're used to having 60 people with microphones at every practice, and just security 24/7 because it was Toronto, right? Like, and people would sneak into the practice rink and do whatever, and it was hilarious. And you get to Anaheim, and it's like, I remember, when we started meeting people outside of the team, they're like, "Oh, you moved here for this?" And it's just like, yeah, like, it's like, "Oh, do you play on the team?" I'm like, "No." Like, this is kind of a thing, like, this is like 30 jobs, and I have one of them, like, not to sound whatever, but, like, I never said that, but it's just like they didn't understand how big it was, which was interesting because, our players loved it. You'd walk to the rink, you'd leave, and no one knew who you were. Like, and I remember passing Ryan Getzlaf and his family. Like, we were going to the Angels game, and we were going out for dinner first, and his family's coming out because they're on their way to the game as well. And, hey, and, like, nobody, and, like, he's the most recognizable guy, and people are just like, oh yeah. No clue. And that's, like, to me, that's why that team was, so good. And because, and when we won and stuff, it was parking lot party. It was great, but, like, it's so big that, like, you just kind of just blend in, and hockey players don't necessarily stand out. They're normal looking. They're not like basketball or
7 feet tall.
Right. So they just blend in, and, like, it's just, it's just different. And for me, for my job, I don't think it really changes a whole lot. I think, the scrutiny or the whatever. I mean, that's my job to manage that as well, and have the staff and that's more of a job execution thing as opposed to the media, I guess.
Yeah.
But unless there's a substantial problem, but I feel like that's more of like a internal thing that's managed pretty well.
I was when I was down in LA talking to Phoenix Copley, goalie for the Kings. Mm-hmm. He's like, man, I can go anywhere and I don't get recognized.
Right.
And it's like you said, that would be probably a contributing factor to why that Ducks team didn't really have a stress or a care, because you got celebrities A-list going up in the street. You're no big deal, right?
Yeah, you're lower end on that list anyways, right? Because there's people with hockey guys make a lot of money, but comparatively to some people there, it's not even comparable, right? Yeah. So it's different spectrum.
I feel like I could talk with you for hours. We have talked for hours at Kelowna Hockey Fest. I want to make sure I get enough value for these next 45 minutes for the people listening, for the young athletes listening, who can gain a ton of inspiration, knowledge, wisdom from you. And then in between, we'll probably share some stories too, because we got some good Kelowna Hockey Fest stuff. First question, though, that we got from one of our listeners: when you look at elite athletes versus good athletes, what's one performance habit that consistently separates them?
Yeah, that's an easy answer. I feel like I got that question not that long ago. And it's super simple. From my experience of whether it's a team setting, whether it's a private setting, the most successful athletes are the ones who show up. The ones who show up consistently, the days they're supposed to be there, they show up and they work. And that sounds super, dumbed down and whatever, because it is. And you look at, I could show you all of our data, all of our, all the things that we track, from jumps to sprints to, everything. The most successful people on those lists, success, by success, I mean, the performance metrics that we're tracking are the ones that don't miss workouts. They don't miss training sessions. They don't miss field sessions, right? And it goes back to like my, philosophy, if you want to call it that, as a coach, is make sure your athletes are available to participate in their sport, right? It's not bigger, stronger, faster. Mm-hmm. It was when I was younger, but it's now refined to availability to play and participate. So what does that mean? It means that like my guys hopefully don't miss games and they don't miss opportunities to practice. If they're playing every game and they're never missing practice unless they want to, well, it's a win, right? And because it means that they're likely performing to the way that they should. They're getting opportunities, and they're getting an opportunity to make more money, to get another contract. Like, that's my job, and it took me a while to figure that out, and I'm glad I did when I did. I wish I would have figured it a little sooner, but
when was it? When was that moment?
I don't know. I think it's. I think you just kind of slowly figure it out hopefully, I guess, you slowly figure it out, because you start to realize that, the best people in the gym, the strongest gym person isn't necessarily your best hockey player, right? And not always, anyways, very rarely. Yeah. And, I think working with athletes at that level, and you start to realize that, hey, like, this person doesn't love the gym. They don't love training. But they always show up and they respect it, and they have they know it's part of what they need to do, right? So you start to figure out like they're successful because this. They're not successful because they love the gym, right? Like it's, to me, that was always like a light bulb. I remember working with a guy who's with the Oilers now, and he had an issue with his, upper back was tight or something very minimal. And like, he's someone that I work with all year, and before I had a chance to say anything to him, this is over text message, he responded with all the things that I would have said. So I did this, and then I did that. Now it feels better. And I'm just like...
Learn the process.
Yeah. I'm like, great. And like, that was the end of the conversation, right? And so it was kind of neat to see that, like, that's success. Yeah. Like, that's my job right there, is to nudge them in the direction of like, you need to be responsible and accountable for this. This is part of your job. You don't need to love it, but you better respect it, and you better prioritize it, right? And like a lot of people would say like, oh, what do you mean that pro athletes not going to prioritize their training? Not always.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've experienced that too, and it's awful to watch because it's like you have all these gifts and you're just going to piss them away because you don't know how to self-organize and realize what you need to be doing, right? And that's, to me, that's, I don't know when that moment was, but that to me is like, oh, that's what I'm trying to do. Like that's what I should be, paying more attention to, right? Long-winded.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up the data, and obviously sport science has come a long way. I'm curious, like what the work you're doing with Bryce is also super interesting. He and I obviously have chatted over the past couple of summers. I'm getting on the boards, doing the fun stuff there. But like, you see it firsthand. You've seen it for decades. Do you think data is being overused, or is data playing an even more important part in sports science now?
I think it's playing a more important part in terms of what we can do with it.
Right.
I think, Bryce does such an incredible job of taking the data and making it meaningful,
right,
to us as coaches and to the athletes. And those two pathways are different, right?
Yeah.
And, for the athletes, it's all about, chasing the number and being into their data and owning their data. And for us as coaches, it's like, okay, what is the data telling us?
Yeah.
What is the data, telling us about our training and telling us about how we're doing things? And the data should, if the data is good and your coaching is sound, then the data should back up your intuition as a coach, right? I should be able to look at our athletes and say, this isn't going well. The jump numbers should tell me that as well, right? So good data should back up my intuition and should inform my decision as a coach that, hey, if something doesn't look right, the data should match that, right? So I think when it comes to, the amount of things that you can do and the amount of toys that you can get, I think some individuals on the coaching side get way too far down that rabbit hole and start, being very gimmicky with training and very like velocity-based training. Great tool, great metric, but like for me, it doesn't hold as much weight because that's but I think I can influence that by coaching properly.
Right.
I can influence that by intent and practicing intent. And not that, again, we use it, it's great, but like I don't put as much stock into it because that's me. That's up to me as a coach. Like if you're in the room with me, that's up to me.
Yeah.
Right? Or that's up to creating the environment. And that's just one example, but like I think there's lots of things out there that tend to distract, the bright shiny objects, but good training is kind of, it's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring and monotonous, and the people who show up and who can dig into that and learn to get through it and learn to kind of say enjoy it, but enjoy that process of it and be willing to be wrong and be willing to be whatever, criticized and critiqued, and that's where it's at. It's not the shiny thing. And we throw some shiny things in there once. You got to make it fun, but like
I think that's what I appreciated about Hockey Fest the past couple of years. We have the conference on the Wednesday night where you get to learn from industry experts. But then during the actual week, you have a couple shiny things, but it is a lot of hard training and it's a lot of just putting in the work. And I think from being able to be on the outside, sort of inside the lines, watching it all, it's a good combination of the two because you've got guys flying from all over North America to come train in little old Kelowna, Kelowna, we call it in the summer there. And it's really become a hotbed. Yeah. And I think for you, that's probably something that you've got to be pretty proud of over the past few years, building that up. Guys like Jack Finley talking about it on Tampa Bay's podcast, saying that you've got literally guys buying property in Kelowna so that they can train there during the summer. Yeah. Like that's got to feel good for you to not only have built that, but also to see what's coming for the next 5-10 years, right?
Yeah, you know what? It's I think moving to Kelowna was something that just kind of like landed in our lap. Initially it was, I didn't want to go back to Ontario because my wife and I were just, you get spoiled by California when it's 75 and sunny 12 months a year. And, Ontario just wasn't as appealing.
Not quite 75.
Not quite. And, we'd already done that, like we'd already been there. And I just think in my head, it was always like, give our kids a California was an adventure, a 6-year adventure. It's like, okay, what's our next adventure, right? Like I don't know. My parents lived in the same town their whole lives, which is great. I love it. From Whitby, Ontario. It's a great place to live. Yeah. Most of my friends live there, and that's fine, and that's great. I just wanted something different for my kids. I wanted something different for myself. Like I'd like, the moving to a new place and having to kind of meet new people, and like I think it's good for the kids. I think it's good for me. I think it's good for, lots of different things. And when I first started looking into it, I had some clients there already, and I had Okanagan Hockey Academy that kind of allowed me to made it easier to go there. I was consulting with them, and I kind of upped my consulting with them, and they were great. Andy Oakes, the president, said, you could probably open a business here. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, there's got to be people here doing stuff. Like, this feels like there's a lot of hockey guys here. And it just turned out that it wasn't being done to what Trav and I are doing now. And, when one of the things I said to Luke Shenham was like, I want to partner. I want to partner with someone local, if possible, because I know I'm going to travel. I know I'm going to, and I want a partner. It's nice to have, like,
doing stuff on your own is hard.
It is, man, and I've done it, and it's I was looking for that, and as soon as I met Trav, I'm like, yep, this makes sense, right? Like, we just gelled, and so many people, small town Kelowna, but like everybody I asked, it was his name that was said first, and it's like, okay, and then we happened to meet each other randomly, and we talked in the lobby of the rink for like an hour. I'm like, okay. So now, it was such a cool thing, and to see it grow and to see Hockey Fest go from, hey, I got this idea, to, kind of taking on a life of its own is pretty neat. And there you go.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about Trav, but like he's your guy.
Yeah, you know what? It's tough to have business partners. I'm not perfect. He's not perfect, but I think when we both come at it with humility and, willing to share, I guess, like that's the first thing that comes to mind, is like, neither of us know that, we both know it's a special thing, right? And we both know that it's, if we can put the right people together and the right team together, this could be a really special thing. And, with our practitioners and with all the support staff, like our people on the ice, like it's just, you couldn't have planned it better, right? Like, and that's where I think one of the big reasons why it's been successful is that the team, it's not just me and Trav, it's our massage people, our chiros, our people that come in and out, our on-ice helpers, Byron Ritchie, Ty Lebo, like Jared Allen, like all these people contribute into this. So I can't sit here and say it's me and Trav or me or who, like, no, it's everybody that contributes. Like our people care, right? And I think they realize that, like, they can be part of this thing too. And it's a cool thing to be a part of. And then we get to do some good work, and, get to make a name for the city and why it's so special, right? And to me, it was, when I first got there, I'm like, why aren't more guys here? Yeah. Like, the retired guys were on their way, the Webbers, the Seabrooks, and they were kind of like getting close to the end. I'm like, well, we need new people. Like, why aren't they here? And that's kind of how Hockey Fest started, right? It's like, let's just do something. Yeah. Sorry, long-winded, but it's a lot to say.
It just reminds, it's like, it's ego dissolution. And I talk with every athlete on this podcast, but hockey players, hockey guys in particular, like, there's not as much ego involved.
No.
And I feel like that on its own allows Hockey Fest to be that, because you do have dozens of people contributing that are all taking part. But at the end of the day, when that picture is taken, on the ice, it's like you do have all those couple dozen people, but no one's out there trying to make sure they're front and center.
No.
Right? And it's different. Not all sports are like that.
No, very true.
And I think hockey in particular is one that you can kind of notice. I see like a Jessica Campbell being willing to come up, participate, be a part of that. Like, I was talking with her. I'm going to go down to Seattle at some point, get her on the podcast. But like, she's the kind of individual that doesn't go to everything.
Right.
But she's willing to come to Kelowna Hockey Fest because she knows who's a part of it and the fact that it's a team effort.
Well, and you talk about, like, one of the reasons why my move to Kelowna was, one of them was her, and I reached out, again, asked around, and, the guys were all skating with her, and like her reputation was incredible. And we got on the phone, and I said, look, like I've realized by working with Barb Underhill, Tracy Tutton, like I need someone on the ice who understands what I'm doing in the gym and who can complement it and grow it together. Again, same thing, right? Like, where's our team? Who's our team? It's not a solo project, because I've done that before. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in the way that you think it would, because there's so many other elements to this job than the stuff that happens in the gym. Yeah. So, Jess was, again, one of the reasons why I'm like, yep, okay. And, we started doing stuff together, and, you watch someone like her, and she's sending me feedback on one of the athletes, all video, and I'm like, oh my God, like, wow, like she's so technically savvy that is technically savvy on the ice, obviously, like what she's teaching and like how she's teaching it. I'm like, whoa. And then she backs it up with the actual technical, like video overlay. And I'm like, wow, like this is incredible. So, it was an easy decision. And then in the back of my head, I'm going, well, she's not going to be here very long because this is, ridiculous. She's going to get snapped up by somebody. And sure enough, she did. But, like having that support network of practitioners, coaches, therapists, like you have to have it. And you go into other markets, and, I'm outside of Toronto, like there's so many people, but so many of them are in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it for the ego. They're in it for, and maybe that's where Kelowna is special, where it's not, people don't think about that first. They think about their actual craft first. I don't know. But it's a special place.
It is, and I think like you touched on that, like the bigger, faster, stronger piece, Kelowna, you being like having someone who on the ice can complement what you're doing off the ice. And like the next question comes from Skinner67, not Stuart Skinner, who was recently traded. Question 2 here. A lot of people train hard but don't get results. Where do you see athletes wasting effort in their preparation?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a lot of wasted effort comes from not understanding the rabbits you should be chasing, and I think that comes from, again, maybe a little bit of ego, the willingness to really evaluate your skills and abilities and your downfalls, just a full evaluation of what you need and how you plan to achieve it. And I think, is it a physical thing? Are you, I'm good at bench press, and I'm really, I love doing it, but it's probably not the best thing for me to be doing, especially now, right?
Maybe I should focus on the things I'm not good at.
Right. And it's like, mobility. We never warmed up when I played sports. Like you just got into it, right? So, which is dumb. Yeah. And I'm paying for it. But I think athletes, it goes back to what we said. They tend to chase the shiny stuff. And they look on Instagram, and I'm not saying social media is negative, but it can sometimes lead athletes. I could show you messages of guys, they send me stuff on social. Hey, is this any good? Are we going to do this? And it's great. They're thinking about training, and they're getting excited. And usually, the messages will start like March, April, as they start to think about coming home for the summer. Right. And it's like, it's great. They're thinking about it. And like, there's some really dumb stuff they send me, and there's some really actually good stuff. I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is great. And same thing with nutrition. There's a lot of misinformation around nutrition. And I was talking to an athlete this morning, like, I went carnivore for 4 months. It's like, okay, well, like,
how'd that performance?
Well, like, number one, you did it for 4 months. This is not sustainable. Yeah. Like, you need macronutrients, so protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Like, you can't, if you remove one, you'll lose weight, but it's not gonna, it's not gonna be good. Yeah. And again, with an asterisk, obviously, there's different parameters, different people. But I would say that is chasing what they shouldn't be chasing, number one. But I would also say that, like, in hockey specifically, it's too much time on ice, right? It's too much time, and it goes back to the first thing. Like, it's too much time focusing on what you don't need to be focusing on, right? Like, you need dedicated time away from the ice. You need to get out of your skates. You need to get, into your feet again. Like, last time I checked, wearing carbon fiber boots for 12 months a year, like, is not good for you.
Yeah. If you check out some hockey players' toes, they probably don't look too good.
Yeah. So
mine included.
Yeah. And so, there's there's education around that. And I think, a lot of young hockey players today are just, I did a presentation in June at University of Michigan for the coaches site. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing was about, the evolution of spring hockey and the 10,000 hour rule, which I don't agree with. And it spawned this whole network of year-round sports, year-round hockey. And like, I talked to a guy the other day whose 13-year-old just had hip labral surgery, and he's speaking to me like it's normal, and I'm like, yeah, that's not normal, and that's not good. That
overtraining.
Yeah, and last time I checked, skating is not natural. It's not a natural motion for the body, and there's a lot of people who are not set up to skate that much, mm-hmm. to skate at all.
Yeah.
But we still do it, right? So, the question again, not understanding what you should be chasing, and then too much time in the sport and not having enough of an athletic, toolbox, I guess, or repository that you can pull from, where your body has no other choice. Yeah. Like my kids play lacrosse, they play flag football, they do, they do other things because, to me, my job as a dad is to make sure that they get exposed to things, right? To mountain biking, to martial arts, to gymnastics, to whatever. And does that mean they're going to be pro athletes? Probably not, but I don't care. It's not about that. It's about making sure they love activity and being healthy and moving and all that other good stuff, right?
And I would actually argue that, to the very first point that you brought up, like them being able to play a bunch of sports, not being injured, having the ability to go play whatever they want, whenever they want, may actually allow them to pursue those sports to a greater extent down the road, right? And like that kid who's 13 getting his hip replaced, like, that's going to be a problem again in a couple more years because the workload isn't changing. And that's what more than anything over the past 6 years with this podcast, I'm like, I see so many athletes being a hockey player for the rest of your life, and it's like at 18, if you don't get drafted, you don't make it to that next level, like, what's your plan? And not to say that, hey, I don't like putting most of your eggs into one basket. If you want to be that NHL player, go for it, but make sure that you are becoming a well-versed human being outside of just being a hockey player. That's my thing, at least, because I think it's great, but after 30, unless you're super involved in the alumni association and you're working out, like, you've got to have other sports that you can play, because when you go play catch with your son 10 years from now and you can't throw a baseball, that's an awkward thing too, right? And not like, as a father or as a future father, you would want to be able to do all those things with your kids. That's like, when you get, that's what jazzes me up, because I think people need to hear that more than anything, that their kids should be playing a ton of sports. Everyone wants, I think it's the parents not making the NHL so that they want to have their kid be the one that makes the NHL. You see it probably way more than anyone else. I can't even imagine. Third question. Again, very specific to what you do here. Okay. How do you balance physical training with mental readiness when an athlete is under real pressure?
Well, I think number one, I work with professionals, right? On the mental health side, I work with sports psychiatrists. I work with mental health counselors. So number one, working with educated people. I think there's a lot of people in our space now, which, all things performance, nutrition, mental, everything, right? Who are calling themselves mental health coaches who have no business being mental health anything. And that's my own opinion, obviously, but it's kind of scary. Like, you get people who are, talking to athletes about their mental health and who aren't
stable in their own right.
Well, not even that, but just like trained professionally. It's an important thing. Like, you can get away with, hey, I played hockey, I can show you how to work out. Oh, okay. You might be able to get away with that for a little while, but talk about someone's mental well-being, mental health, like, that's serious. Like, number one is find a professional, and that's either a doctor, right? Or that's a educated counselor who has certain credentials and what have you. I think that's number one. Outside of that, my job is to, again, availability to play for the athlete. Well, my job as a coach is a support network, right? So if I see something that to me looks like, well, you need some support in something that I'm not professionally trained in, I'm going to reach out to my network, and that's what I do. And like, I don't pretend to, there's little things like, I've been doing this a long time. So there's patterns that you see, and there's, you're dealing with young athletes, males and females. They're both very different, and they're both different in how they react to wins and losses, ups and downs, and what have you. And my advice across the board, and this is generic because I'm not a professional, is, not too high, not too low, right?
Even keel.
Even keel. You have a really good day, great. Celebrate it, and then get back to here.
Yeah.
You have a really shit day, great. Be sad about it, but get back to here. So. One of the girls who I work with who's gone through, tremendous thing, even a guy like Jack Finley, who's shoulder surgery, hip, all sorts of issues, who's now, doing great. And that's so cool to see, because he was one of those guys that, a lot of ups and downs, because he went through some shit and he had to deal with it, and it was hard. Mm-hmm. And, he came every day with such a great work ethic and attitude. And there was days where he came and he knew, I said, you know what, just go home. Like, you're good. Yeah. It's okay. And that to me is where I can be supportive, is paying attention to who my athletes are. And that's work. That's getting to know them. That's spending time outside the gym with them in a professional way. That's supporting them. And, I get fortunate to get, thank you notes on jerseys and stuff like that. But, when they create a milestone, which is really cool. And if you looked at all those jerseys and all those signatures, there's nothing about like, oh, your lunge or your leg workout was the best, or you're like, I learned how to bench from you. Like, no, it's all to do with this stuff. It's personal stuff. It's thanks for your mentorship. Thanks for your guidance. Thanks for your friendship. It's nothing about technical stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think the mental health is more of just like, I'm a support network. I get a lot of bad phone calls, and I get a lot of really good phone calls, right? Which is great. I'm happy to answer both. But when it comes to actual mental health, it's get a professional, right? And don't try to be something I'm not. Like, oh, sit on the couch here. Let me tell you all your problems. No, it's, hey, I have a network of people. Here's who I recommend, right? And then checking in with them, barring the, privacy stuff. Like, how else can I support this athlete? Anything that I should... and the people I work with are amazing, and they tell me those things. Hey, here's, without breaking privacy, here's some information. Yeah. Great. Now I can roll with that, right?
It's such a hot topic right now, and I think people, again, they may think about coming to a coach and not going to a professional because that's who they see every single day.
Right.
And it's, hey, maybe recognizing the fact that it's important to go talk to... Shallow had the same answer.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm a chiro, or I'm a physio, or I'm a strength and conditioning guy. My biggest strength is also knowing who to go to when 100%. The situation comes, right?
Well, and you heard me talk about it before, is like our network.
Exactly.
Our network in Kelowna is incredible because, I think that's part of what I'm good at, is finding those people who, and even, a guy like Finley, I put him with a certain practitioner of ours who I knew he would get along with, a guy who's very black and white, who's very credible at what he does, and I knew Jack would respect that guy more so than maybe somebody else. Right. And not that somebody else couldn't do the job, it's just matching the personality. That's
a superpower.
Yeah,
sure.
and when you're able to pick your network and make sure that you have those incredible people who can contribute, you're going to win.
Well, and that's what separates a good coach from a great coach too, because you have someone who's going to try and do all of those things versus recognizing what they can do and what they can't do.
True. Yeah.
Right.
And that's like knowing your limitations as a coach, and, knowing when the flag goes up in your head, like, okay, this person may need support beyond my, stand or beyond my scope.
Yeah.
I should be referring them out immediately,
When you think back to the past few decades, who were those people that you were looking up to that you kind of, I don't want to say idolized, but coaches that you were like, hey, I like the way they operate. I want to build my program in a similar fashion.
I mean, the list is very long because, that network of people is still my network, right? And I think that's our strength and conditioning world. The good people everybody knows each other, right? Like the Shallows and the, even Trav, there was 6 degrees of separation from me knowing him. Right. So, one of the guys, Mike Boyle, based out of Boston, and Mike is always, I just was talking to him 2 weeks ago. He's a guy that I looked at as like he's doing what I want to do. He had a private business. He was the guy that you looked at when I was growing up as a coach of like, I'm modeling what he's doing. Yeah. Not every single thing, obviously.
Taking pieces.
You're taking pieces, and you're going like, oh, how's he doing it? Like, well, he seems like he's pretty successful. Like I would say he's one of the most successful private gym guys in my niche that I know. Ben Prentice is another friend / I guess somewhat of a mentor for sure. He's brilliant. And again, same thing. They operate very differently, but they're both very successful.
Right.
And they're both, they have athletes for, decades of athletes, generational, like the athletes' kids are now training with them, like stuff like that, where it's like, okay, that's what I want, because that's the relationship side of it that I feel I'm also good at or akin to. So those guys like that who are on the private side operating at a high level like that. And then there's guys who are, guys you wouldn't know who are, business leaders and, who, again, just have a great family life, like you try to look at all these just successful people that I'm fortunate enough to be in the, the contacts of, I guess, and try to learn from them. Right.
Well, and I think you are like, you've got those generations now at Kelowna Hockey Fest, not to name names, guys who I beat on the jump board, no big deal, but like that's coming, right? And it takes time, obviously, for you on your end, but I feel like for someone who does have that network, now it's like, hey, this is my place. You and Trav own Kelowna. Now, let's be real, right? And the hockey space, when people think of Kelowna Hockey Fest, they think of Mark and Trav. And for you, that's got to be a big deal so that you can attract more, right? We've talked about it. We're trying to add our CSM athletes there next year. That'll be another 20, 30, 40, 50 females into the mix. You're probably adding another dozen guys every year. Like, what do you see now compared to the vision? Is it close to where you want it to be? Genie in a bottle?
Yes and no. I think I'm always I think on a pretty grand scale sometimes, which is
as you should be.
Yeah,
we got to have visions. We're dreamers.
I was listening to a podcast the other day about a guy who's a Diary of a CEO. It was really good.
Stephen Bartlett. Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about one of the guys who was on there who founded like 80 businesses or something, and he still holds on to this evaluation he got from a school counselor or something that said like, delusions of grandeur. And he's like, these aren't delusions. Like, this is how I think. Right. And like, to me, I think about like our next step, and I'm actually somewhat in the process of doing it, is having our own place, like trying to build Disneyland basically. And now we have someone that is, that is way more possible than it's ever been, which is pretty exciting. Talking about, having our own rinks, having, facilities, having, everything, because for me, it's not just about owning a gym. It's about owning or being part of, a destination place where, that team of professionals is just multiplied. Now we have
something bigger,
and to me, that's, a legacy thing. It's also, how do we create more impact? You can only have so many athletes in the gym before, it gets unmanageable. But what you could have is, generational impact, and, our charity with the YMCA, like, how do we impact them more? How do we raise more money? How do we, so it's beyond just the training thing now. I think my head goes to like, can we create a unique environment, facilities, and more programs, more this, more that. Like, that's where my head goes. And if that doesn't happen, I'm fine with that too. I think I always want to be thinking about how do I increase my quality of work. And, so those two different pathways, obviously they're a little bit different, but I'm happy with what we're doing and the scale of it. And if it happens to grow into something different, I'm happy that too. I think I'm not too attached to one either way, because I've been down the road a few times, and if this thing with Disneyland happens, then great, let's go. And if it doesn't, I'm okay too.
Fitzgerald Fitness Forum.
Disneyland. No chance. No chance.
You're probably going to have some of your blood flow restriction tools in there too then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm part of a company called Hydro, and I've used blood flow restriction devices for a long time, and it's still pretty. Let's say it's not that it's unknown, but it's not as
bleeding edge.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that people don't have enough information around, and I think a lot of people just get intimidated maybe by it, or I don't know if it's the right way to say it, but Hydro is, at first I was very skeptical on, because it's actually, instead of individual units, it's like compression shorts that you use a Velcro strapping system to kind of like engage the blood flow restriction. And at first I'm like, oh, that can't be any good. And then there's shorts, and now there's a shirt as well. And it is incredible how many more athletes I've gotten into BFR because of that, because it's easier, and because it's
barriers to entry are gone.
Yeah, it's just lower, right? And now I'm part of the company, which is really, really cool, as I got to know them and some mutual friends who are already involved. So we're putting out quite a bit more BFR education and kind of growing in my network and into hockey. That's kind of my goal with the company. So it's pretty exciting to be a part of.
So give us a high level, because I've seen it a bit. Mitchell Hooper, world's strongest man, was rocking them, using them. We talked about it a bit on the podcast, but like for athletes who are interested in it, obviously we got our palm coolers here, which is on the recovery side. Your blood flow restriction is something that, again, some people, I say bleeding edge with a bit of a pun involved. But like, what should people be aware of? How should they be going about it? Is this probably, I would say, seems like one of the easier ways to go about BFR and to kind of have something that's self-controlled?
And I guess number one is educate yourself. You know, like if you have a coach that you can lean into, or there's education online, and we're going to be obviously producing a lot more of it, but blood flow restriction is all about changing the environment inside the body, right? Is changing the environment to basically multiply what a normal movement would do. Now we're adding to that. We're changing the environment so much that it changes the outcome of the exercise or the outcome of the work. And with blood flow restriction, it's an old technology, but it's just something that, as soon as I say, you're going to cut off your blood. Well, no, it's not like that. It's a systemic effect that, you're pushing more blood to areas. You're making your body work, but the result becomes, the effects of the result just become amplified, so you get a very different feeling with blood flow restriction. And it's one of the tools that, there's lots of different ways to use it. The ways in which I use it is, a table setter, right? So it sets the table for the training. To me, it brings blood to tissue, right? So cranky knees and shoulders, there's things we can do to, change that environment, and so that the athlete feels like there's something else happening there. And at the end of the training session, then we can add a little bit more, right? There's, anywhere from 8 to 14 weeks in the summertime, sometimes shorter, depending on playoffs and Stanley Cups. And so you got to make the most of every day, right? And BFR helps me make the most of a shortened off season or what have you. It also acts as a recovery modality. We're plunging with cold tubbing with the BFR shorts on.
Way.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work in the water with the BFR engaged as well. So it's an amazing tool that, not everybody's using. I use it and have used it for a long time, and feel very fortunate. I got introduced when I did, and again, with a lot of guys that tend to come our way because of injuries and what have you. So it becomes a big part of what we're doing, right? So
I'm excited to try them.
We'll get you some. We'll get you some for sure.
The part that I like, I was telling you, it's like, over the past 6 years, I just get to have conversations like this, and it's like, now I get to go train using BFR. And I'm like, I can speak to this now, and hey, younger athletes could benefit from it. But if I didn't have that, or I didn't know, like, just all of this knowledge is, for lack of a better term, gate kept. That's part of what I'm trying to do here with this too, is like, you, Trav, all these other coaches, the only way you get access to them is if either you have money or you follow you online. Which everyone should do. Go check out. But with this, it's another medium for people to absorb this information, for younger athletes to be able to say, hey, like, I can use palm cooling, I can use BFR, I can maybe use some of the other tools that the 1080p tracking, right? And those are all little things that athletes don't know about, aren't aware of. And if they don't, then it's like, that's the reason why the people who work with you get to that next level. Anyway, a little sidebar. Hopefully those people are appreciating it. Number 4, What's something you've changed your mind about in performance training over the years?
Obviously, I think there's probably a long list of things. I think
maybe a 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think you realize as a young coach, like I already said, it's not necessarily about bigger, faster, stronger. It's how do you make sure that athletes don't miss time to play their games and participate. And I think that was a big epiphany. And what comes with that is you start to look at exercise selection. You start to look at, even training blocks, way back when it'd be like, okay, you have to 4 weeks, right? Like 4 weeks of the same exercises with slight variations. And then once you get to 4 weeks, then you change.
Right.
And it's like, well, if I only have someone for 6 weeks, I can't do that.
1.5 training
right.
blocks.
Yeah. So, and again, everybody's a little bit different and people would maybe argue with me. But realistically now our training blocks are 2 weeks long.
Yeah.
And I can get a lot done in that time, and I can manipulate that with lots of different things because there's so many tools out there, right? Like you don't just have to be in the squat rack and you don't just have to be with a barbell. Like there's so many options, and I think it cripples some people too. And it is a lot, but I think just, looking at how we actually train now.
Yeah.
Whereas before, like some people even did 6 week blocks, but like, again, you don't have the luxury of that time. And, one of the other things would be like, even what we do with a barbell, Olympic lifting and stuff like that, I don't tend to do as much of that because it's just not bang for your buck. And I always look at the downside of an exercise. Like if it's a really good exercise and it's all upside, there's nothing that, out of obviously weird stuff, but the risk is very minimal. Yeah. I'm going to put that exercise in. But if there's an exercise that has a higher risk because it's putting the athlete in a precarious position, or maybe they're not good at it, or they don't feel good about it, like I'm not going to use that exercise.
And it's like, okay, if you're a hockey player using a split squat with dumbbells on your side versus a back squat and 400 pounds on your back, you're like, okay, I can drop those dumbbells if I need to. That back squat's probably not it's a precarious position to be in.
And I'm not saying that I don't like back squats. I think they're a great exercise. One of the best exercises you can do. They're just, every exercise is not meant for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's just, and Stu McGill is another mentor of mine. And, it's something he said that I always have tattooed in my brain is, not everybody is meant to pick up a barbell from the ground, and
I'm chatting with him in December, actually.
Are you really?
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah.
I still keep in touch regularly because I think he's the best at what he does. I think he's legendary. And when he said that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like you're right. And it's so clear to me after he said that, and we started talking about the why and the how levers and the different bodies that you're going to come across. And when you start working outside of hockey, I work with some NFL players, like a guy who's 6'6". It's like that guy, you better change your approach with a guy who's that long because he's not going to be able to do the same things. Or if he can do them, it's going to come at such a higher cost
risk
that it's not worth it.
Yeah, Victor Wembanyama is not built to be deadlifting.
No,
and that's a tough one too because
deadlift's an amazing exercise, right? Like, but there's just so many. So what have I changed my mind on? Is that exercise selection. There's so many different ways to do it, and I am not married to one methodology. I'm married to what works. And again, you could have thousands of coaches that would argue up and down that with me of you have to do barbell this and you have okay, but I'm not, and I'm not going to change that.
To me, that's just maturity, though, right? That's the difference of having worked with thousands of athletes probably at this point compared to people who have maybe worked with hundreds and they haven't seen the negative ramifications from picking up a barbell from the floor when you maybe aren't built for it. For me, I always look at, you're the expert in the field. You're hired for a reason. Let the coach do the job, which is also probably a tough thing to do when you deal with players. Again, I've talked about hockey, but you're dealing in lacrosse, other sports. That's got to be a difficult thing to deal with, the egos at times. At times, for sure. I think, football was definitely different. I mean, the guys I worked with were awesome. I had some experiences with some guys that, not that they weren't good people, but it was just different. It was just a different thing. Hockey,
and even lacrosse, the guys are awesome.
Yeah,
and girls too. Like this minimal ego in both of these sports, and I think that's why I enjoy. You asked me before about, do I like working in lacrosse? I love it because it's very much like hockey, and the guys are very open to coaching, and they're very appreciative, and they're very like into it, and I love that. And same in hockey, they're very they want to learn, like, and you've seen the guys that we have in terms of hockey, like there's also a no asshole rule, right? Like there's just none of those guys, right? And it's just like they're all great guys. They spend time with my kids. They're kind, like they're just great role models. Like and not because we asked them to. It's just because that's just who they are. I don't know.
I was gonna bring that part up because what was it? The Thursday morning, Trav and I did our VO2 test. ISO Kapnick came in. I'm forgetting his name. It'll come to me. Luke, thank you. Luke Way. Shout out to Coach Luke Way.
He's awesome.
He did that test with us. I'm dying there because we had a couple pops the night before. Probably weren't primed for performance. But either way, Luke Shen was to my left, and he was cheering us on, giving us tips about how to do that. And it's like, he doesn't have to do that. He just sees two Joe Blows, one guy who kind of looks like a Walmart McDavid, and he's like, what's he doing this VO2 test for?
Yeah.
But he sees us battle, and he sees us going through it. He's supporting, right? And it's like, that's the kind of stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Well, and like you talk about a guy who's, one of the best guys I've met in hockey is Luke and his brother too, Braden Shen. Like they are, phenomenal guys, phenomenal people who have, like Kelowna High Performance wouldn't be it in the way that it's growing without those guys. Because they're the guys that, not just them, but they're a big proponent of supporting what we're doing. And you can't grow unless you have guys like that who care. You have guys that like, that they know that. I think they also know that Trav and I are doing it for the right reasons. Yes, it's a business and all that stuff, but like they know we care. They know we care, and they know that we're there for them. And they bring their kids to the rink. They play with our kids. Like it's so cool to have guys like that who understand what we're trying to do and support us in doing it. And like you said, like I don't know if that happens in other sports like it happens in hockey, and that's what makes hockey special, right? Like, when I first started coming to Kelowna, Luke recommended a real estate guy, Tyler Bauk, who played in the NHL a little bit, played for the Canucks, who has played hockey in Germany with Trav.
No way.
So like that's the guy who picks me up at the airport. And now we coach together with my youngest boy.
Sick.
Right? Like
that's cool.
How does that how's that a thing? It's just ridiculous, man. So I don't know. That hockey world I've been very fortunate to be on the very positive end of it, and benefiting from it and what have you. And there's ups and downs, obviously, but man, I would say over the course of my career, whatever you want to call it, it's been beneficial and so supportive.
Well, and I think just to touch on the captain piece that we've talked about, that's Braden. That's the guy like that, right?
There you go.
That's the definition of a leader. Someone who's willing to do whatever it takes, right? And you see it. There's a certain level that you just see from afar, even the way people handle themselves, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Last question for those who are listening. This is number 5. Mm-hmm. If you had an athlete for just 30 days before a major event, this is the 4-week training block. I guess this is what Schmitty's talking. If you had an athlete for just 30 days before a major event, what would you prioritize and what would you ignore?
That's a very tough to answer question.
There's exceptions to every rule, right? And that's what we're just getting the audience.
Yeah, I would say like barring, all the sports stuff is handled, and there's no other things that would get in the way of whatever. It's all the controllables are controlled. Like it's looking at the sport itself and understanding what said athlete needs to do. So it starts with an evaluation of their abilities, right? Speed, power, strength, understanding, okay, where is their detriment? And also, what does the sport require?
What are you optimizing for?
What are we optimizing for? So I know it's a generic answer, but that's, then it's just training. Then it's just time under tension and reps. And I talked to an athlete yesterday about it, of like, look, like this process of you getting back and playing your sport it requires you to maybe downshift some of these other things that you're really good at or that you really like to do. And you have to like upshift these things that I'm, seeing that you need. And you may not be able to see them like I see them, or like the Cairo sees them, or that,
Yeah.
but we see these things, and you got to push what you see over here and lean into what we see, because we think what we see is going to be the gateway that opens up to, improving all those variables. And I think that
bird's eye view.
Yeah. And like, I think, when you're working with an athlete and you have a good team of practitioners, everybody gets to look and say, hey, as a strength coach, I see this. Hey, as a physio, I see this. And you take all that information and you say, okay, because of all that, I'm going to do this. And I think the process would look something like that. Yeah. Conditioning and whatever the sport is, it's not that difficult, right? Like, are you strong? Okay. Once you're strong, and can you take that strength now and express it in a way that is related to your sport? Powerful, fast, whatever those metrics are. Now, can we condition those things? So conditioning comes last. Can we condition all that into, now you can do it repeatedly, right? So day one's not going to look like day 30, as it shouldn't, but they're going to have similarities. They're going to have crossovers, right? Like, I'm talking to a lacrosse player who's injured, and, my conditioning. I go, I don't care about your conditioning. You're not going to play for another 6 weeks.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks we'll condition, and you'll be fine, because you'll be strong, you'll be stable, you'll be powerful. And now we're just adding the
cardiovascular.
Yeah, we're adding the capacity piece, which is in my opinion, the easiest and simplest to add, because it's just, now you got to do work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, now we're just going to push. Now you're going to push mentally, and that's when conditioning should happen. Side note, like, you talk about Trav, like, he's so good on social media. He does such a great job. And, when you have a bigger audience, it opens you up to whatever. And, some guy, he ended up getting into it with somebody about like conditioning, and it was young coaches who are bagging hockey players in May and June. And it's like,
for what?
Yeah, sorry guys, you're not playing in a game until October 1st.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing conditioning workouts in May? Like,
it's crazy.
Why?
It's crazy.
Why? Like, ask that question. Why? Do we do capacity work? Do we do endurance? Sure, but not to the level of like, airdyne sprints and like 800-meter runs. Like, just like, because hey, if you walk away from my workout and you're really tired, well, I did a good job. It's
time and place.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm better than anybody or anything like that. It's just, you realize that like your value as a coach is the long term.
Yeah.
It's not day one of that 30 days. It's day 27 when the athlete goes, oh my God, I feel so good, I'm ready to jump out of this thing.
Or right? When they turn 40 and they've had a successful career, their body still works, they've made their money, and they can do other things.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I'm looking at it long scale, right? Like you just said, day 1 to day 30. I'm like day 3,000.
Yeah,
right.
True.
Because there's a lot of time in between there, and if you get them injured here, or if you don't treat them right here, they don't even get to there.
Well, I was talking to Duncan Keith about it. Not to name drop, it was because we were at the rink the other day, and I did a little presentation for his team, and he's very well educated in training. He trained with a guy who actually I bought DVDs online, CD-ROMs.
Heck yeah.
Probably your audience might not know what the hell that is, but he trained in a very different manner, and it was really cool. Anyways, and I say, like, the tough part now with our industry and training is that you can get away with murder from 13 to 18. I said, but it's like compound interest in a very negative way. If you're doing really dumb shit in those areas, you won't really start to pay for it potentially for years after.
Yeah.
But it does catch up to you. And that to me is like, I think about that every time I'm in the gym, every time I'm with an athlete is how, and you talk about like exercise selection, and you talk about volume, and if by doing this thing, what does it look like down the line, right? Can I find another way to get to where the athlete needs to be without sacrificing X, Y, and Z? And like, that's constantly, and some people may argue with that, and whatever. I don't care. It's a longevity game, and it's, so Dunks and I were talking about it. I'm like, you have to be careful. You have to teach. You have to educate young athletes as to the why. You have, again, I'm going off now, but another guy asked me, what are you doing with your 13-year-old this summer? I'm like,
letting him playing
flag football. We're getting a basketball net, and we're going to train for sure because he wants to train, and that's great. And we're going to sprint, jump, and throw, and he's going to continue to learn how to lift weights,
become an athlete.
Yes, and is he special? I don't know. Yeah. He's my kid, so he's special, but he's not like, I don't know. He's a good little athlete, but is he going to be? I have no idea. I don't care. He's going to love sports and he's going to love training. Hopefully.
Shout out Duncan, recently inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Pretty cool.
The I look at even a guy like Yager, who's like still trains, and like there's a reason why he was able to play until he's still playing. He's pulling the Jackie Moon, playing, coaching, whatever else. I have to ask before we wrap up.
Okay.
We have one other question. You were with the Leafs, where there's a guy named Phil Kessel.
Yep.
Training that guy. Can you tell me any stories?
One of the best athletes on the team.
I've heard. Yeah. This is what I keep hearing.
Yeah. He, whether you like it or not, there's people who are gifted.
Yeah.
And he's a scratch golfer.
Yeah.
He's one of the best 10-yard sprints consistently. One of the best vertical jumps. I think the one year I remember he jumped over 33 inches, which is
absurd.
Yeah, for his stature.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, right? You think about what is he really good at? What was the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Phil Kessel? Shoot the puck. Yeah. What does shooting the puck involve? It involves generating force, and it involves rapid hip flexion and extension. Why can he jump and sprint? Rapid hip flexion extension.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me he can do what he does because he's just wired that way. And, Phil was an Under Armour athlete for a while too, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of photo shoots and stuff together, and just a phenomenal guy, number one, which is the most important. And, he'd come into the gym with his freaking Tim Hortons breakfast sandwich. Meanwhile, in Toronto, we have the best catered food, Beretta Farms, that you could possibly imagine. Like their bacon, I still remember how it tastes. Like ridiculous. And this guy's coming in with a breakfast sandwich. I go, Phil, we have the best caterers ever. He's like, yeah, I just like this stuff. I'm just like, all right, man. We have fucking organic coffee, and he's drinking. I'm like, dude, what are we doing today? I'm like, oh, we're trap bar deadlift, Phil. I'm like, you're pretty good at that though, buddy. So we're good.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
And could his body composition have been better? Sure. We all can. I don't think that's, people discount him for that because, the media, whatever. But he's talented, man, and he trained hard. He did. Yeah. I could tell you right now. Did he act the best in terms of his? No. Was his body language always the best? Probably not. But you can't, you can't take away his ability, and you can't take away that I watched him do the work, and there was a reason why he played the Iron Man. There's success leaves clues, man. He knew exactly what he was doing, and I laugh when people say oh, he's out of shape. No. Did he, again, aesthetically, did he look like how his numbers portrayed him? No.
But athletes don't look like bodybuilders on stage at 4%. And that's another thing that people need to dismiss too.
Yeah,
that's a whole other podcast on its own. I also just wanted to make sure we clear the air because, again, like you said, Phil gets a lot of heat online for that body composition stuff. But you're the one seeing it behind the scenes and can speak to it more than most.
Yeah,
and
he's
even Luke Gazdic, when I did some stuff with him a couple of years ago in Toronto, it was the most unassuming guys can lift the most amount of weights. McDavid is pulling more from the floor on a deadlift drop than any other guy. And it's he doesn't look like he's anything crazy. Right?
But he's a phenomenal athlete. And again, you try to bring up his name when you're teaching young athletes how to move. And it's you think that's just part of it is some natural for sure. But it's a trained thing.
Yeah.
How to evade somebody, how to teach evasion. That's a teachable thing. Mm-hmm. Now, he does it at an elite level for sure.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from him, but I've also watched him train. He trains like a madman. He's dialed.
Practice
dialed.
Like
so it's not surprising, right? But Phil the Thrill is a great dude, and watched him do some special things in the gym and on the ice, and he doesn't deserve the way that it's portrayed, but like, again, he broke the Iron Man streak. Like, how do you argue with that?
We'll get him on the pod. We'll clear up all the myths at some point. The way we wrap up every episode, Mark, as you know, we ask our guests their biggest piece of advice for the next generation of athletes. You've dropped like an hour and 15 minutes of them, but if there's anything specific that you would wrap things up, encapsulate into a 60-second, one sentence, what do you got for the squad?
I think it goes back to consistency. You know, if you want to be a better athlete, hockey player, football player, it's show up and do the work. And that is super generic and boring, but those are the athletes that have the best and longest careers. Those are the athletes who make generational money for their families, are the people that show up and do the work. And they don't lie to themselves about the work that needs to get done or how they're doing it. Right. Like, and I've watched it with guys who maybe shouldn't be in the NHL because of their lack of talent, but they're there because of the way they work and the way they have understood how to change the roles within the game or whatever. And they're setting themselves up for a life of, you know, a pretty good life. Right. As opposed to, you know, sabotaging every step because you don't want to do the work. And I think that, you know, it's consistency, accountability, and showing up, and it opens the door to a lot of other things. But I think that's step one, is like, how can you be consistent in what you want to achieve? And I think that's I still working on it for myself, right? Like, I think it's endless, it's infinite, right? And that to me is like, there's no one thing I can say to you or the audience that, like, oh, that's the thing, and once I do that thing, then it's over. It's like, no, it's infinite. Like, you got to show up with everything. Like, I try to show up to be a good dad, and like, what does that mean? It means that I try to see and have connections with my kids that, you know, the three most important times is breakfast, before school, right after school, and right before bed, right? And like, do I nail that all the time? No, I'm missing 2 days this weekend, and it sucks, but I'm getting out of here early tomorrow morning, and I'm going to watch both my kids play hockey tomorrow. Nice. And I'm going to go to pitching practice with my daughter. So I win, right? Yeah. Like, to me, I do anyways, right? Or so like, but that game never stops, right? My kids get older, it'll be different things. It'll be whatever. And I'm not perfect by any means. I got lots to work on, but it's I got to show up. If I show up, it'll open the door to other good things happening. But if I don't show up, then
you got to give yourself the opportunity to do it. Walk through that door, right?
Yeah.
Mark Fitzgerald, thank you, man. I
man.
Sincerely appreciate it. This has been long overdue. A couple years overdue. Seriously. But hey, it's okay. At least this one was recorded. I did one with Trav and my Jeep, and we didn't even get all of it.
That's amazing.
So he's well overdue to get on here as well. Current strength and conditioning coach for Las Vegas Desert Dogs.
Yep.
Also a man who trains basically everyone in the Kelowna region. So it's Mark Fitzgerald, or Fitzgerald on Instagram?
Fitzgerald ETS.
Fitzgerald ETS.
Yep.
And we'll make sure to link everything down below. Thank you sincerely.
Thanks, buddy.
We'll do it again sometime.
Sounds good.
Maybe at Kelowna Hockey Fest next year. Hey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Cool stuff. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye.